All right, so very good afternoon to all of you, our cherished viewers of Hot Issues on TV3, and welcome to another exciting edition of your program. So it's been some 5 months since the NPP government was sworn into office. Of course, also 5 months since we saw into office new members of parliament. Now, this afternoon, we're in the office of the Minority Leader of Parliament and Member of Parliament for Tamale South, Honorable Haruna Iddrisu. We'll be finding out his impressions about the NPP's performance so far, as well as other issues concerning Parliament. My name is Winston Amwa. We go for a short break. When we return, we begin deliberations. Stay with us. All right, so welcome back from that short break, and thanks for staying with us. This is Hot Issues, and our guest this afternoon, Honorable Haruna Iddrisu. Good afternoon.
Yeah,
and thank you very much for joining.
My pleasure. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, and I believe you're also well.
Great.
So how's the experience been ever since you became Minority Leader?
Very challenging task. One, to reposition the party in Parliament and to support the main party outside Parliament to position the NDC as a credible alternative government. We have a duty and a responsibility to do that. It appears that Ghana is drifting to a two-party state, either MPP or NDC, given the representation and the numbers that reflect in Parliament. We therefore have a moral duty to hold this government accountable to the many lousy promises that they made to the good people of Ghana. Remind them of teachers' allowances, nurses' allowances, restoration of allowances, fiscal discipline, and infrastructure development, and many. One factory, one district, $1 million, one constituency initiative, and to tailor how those projects or initiative or promises are made real. We have our doubt, and there is general air of doubt as to whether government will be able to honor or fulfill many of the campaign rhetorics and promises. And there is general air of doubt now about even the president's and government's ability to guarantee the safety and security of Ghanaian citizens.
What's that general air of doubt? According to the government, they've started on a good note. Some of the promises they made, it's seen in the budget.
You recall that when the president appeared before Parliament, I reminded him that he was Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, not the Invincible Forces. It was to send a message to him to work with states, legitimate institutions. But if you have the like of Invincible Forces and Delta Forces, you have it on the face of a competent court of jurisdiction which is sitting. You have such an affront of an action of contempt of Parliament, and those persons are arrested and freed on the grounds of no evidence or for want of evidence. That's not laughable, but that becomes a recipe and a license for lawlessness.
The Treasury has indicated she's looking into these cases.
No. Once people act with impunity and not punished, then you lose the deterrence value of the essence of punishment. The primary responsibility of every government is to guarantee the safety and security of its citizens. You don't have instances where, in the name of partisan consideration, persons who should stand before trial, persons who should face the full rigors of the law, let go the trial process. I don't think that is acceptable.
How do you prove there's partisan consideration in that?
President, why were Delta forces freed, other than the partisan pressure that you already heard even from leading members of
the
NPP?
Senior State Attorney said she didn't have evidence, so she's advised them against it.
We're told even publicly, and I'm sure you heard same, that nothing will happen to them and that they will be free. You heard even exchanges between national security and many other persons. We simply are saying that it does not send a good signal to a country that is committed to guarantee the safety of its citizens and to maintain law and order. I have cautioned publicly that we should not allow that to become a license for lawlessness in the country.
What are the performance by way of the economy so far, the first 5 months?
It's too early to judge the performance of the economy. you still have the cedi struggling against other major currencies as in conversion to the exchange rate. Unemployment still remain a major national security crisis. You've heard that nurses are picketing and sleeping at the Ministry of Health. It means that their awaited allowances is not forthcoming here.
They say their postings are not ready.
You have to post them first before you pay them.
Yes, the allowance that we're supposed to have been given.
What is keeping it again?
I mean, the allowance was as a result of being in school.
We are 5 months.
The postings are not
We
ready.
are 5 months into the administration. When they were not posted the last time in December, it was incompetence. So is this a substandard approach to dealing with unemployment? So that has not been addressed. Teachers are still awaiting their allowances. You heard again the ministry and rhetorics of ghost names. The president at May Day said that there was savings of 435 million Ghana cedis, only to backtrack that he was fighting ghosts, many of them resurrected as living persons. It means that the president must be given accurate and reliable data if he's speaking.
Folks, so my guest this afternoon on Hot Issues is Honorable Haruna Iddrisu, Minority Leader and Member of Parliament for Tamale South. Let's get to the bond now. The Finance Minister has been in Parliament. You have a better understanding of the issues and the concerns you raised now?
Yes, a bond issued within 2-3 days and raises questions of transparency, particularly when the Securities Exchange Commission, which is supposed to approve of the bond, does not exist. The board, as I speak this morning, has not been constituted. So when you say you follow due process of regulations and law, you did not respect the Securities Exchange Commission and the act that governs what they do. Now, 2.25 billion at knowledgeable Baume's rate of 4.2 Ghana cedis in terms of exchange rate should not give you 9.2 billion but 9.4 billion Ghana cedis.
That depends on the time that was done, because if we're looking
so
at the
check
figure,
the closure date.
Yes, the
and
closure.
share with me.
This was in April,
and I say please don't say April. Use an exact date, 3rd April, and get the closure date. Now, yesterday I had filed an half-hour motion on behalf of the minority to elucidate more facts and wanted utilization of proceeds. All he did was to share 2 billion and 1 billion, 3 billion. What happens to the additional 6 billion is more remains unanswered as an issue. Now, there are relational issues we raise with borders on conflict of interest, which is matters that are dealt with by the Constitution of Ghana for public officers not to place themselves in a position of conflict of interest. That is being handled by Shiraj. There is a matter of insider trading, which is being handled by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission based on a petition that we sent. But we need more detail. For instance, at closure, what was it? I mean, if you hear a Minister of Finance tell you that this was a cedi-denominated bond, but yet my international reserves have gone up, that can be a major contradiction. How can the cedi contribute to the soaring up of your international reserves? Now, if you have a situation where you are profiling or reprofiling debt, and you argue that it will not add a single peso to your debt stock, now, even if the exchange rate suffers, you will need additional resources. For instance, if you need 4.1 Ghana cedis or 4.1 billion to service a $1 billion receipt, if the exchange rate goes to 4.2, 4.5, you now really need 4.5. That will be additional stress on the economy. So I think that we are unhappy about
and what if the cedi appreciates?
We are not satisfied. Good. We are not satisfied with the documentation that we had, but we are studying the rest of the documents that he tabled before Parliament, and we will come back to the Ghanaian public to share more what our risks of one single obligor of 95%. That is worrying if that single obligor or person decides to go to the secondary market to offload it, that can be troubling for the Ghanaian economy.
We'll definitely continue on this, but we need to go for a short break. When we return after this break, we'll find out more about some of the issues you've raised, particularly in relation to the bond, insider trading, conflict of interest. We'll get some reasons that would prove that this is the situation. Folks, this is Hot Issues on TV3 with me, Winston. Our guest this afternoon is Honorable Haruna Iddrisu. We go for a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back from that short break, and thanks for staying with us. This is Hot Issues, and our guest is Honorable Haruna Iddrisu. But Honorable Haruna Iddrisu, so the bit about insider trading and conflict of interest.
These are matters which have been investigated, so I would not make any further comment on it.
But there was a suspicion of it.
We have filed, not...
Yes, in filing, so that means that you suspect something. We want to understand what that suspicion is leading to you filing and seeking investigation.
There is a relational interest, and the minister probably played a role in the earlier Eurobond of 2007. And the way information was shared among participants and potential investors and the way prospectus was done, we think that it was unfair to other investors, and for him to offload as much as 95% to that single obligor borders on that conflict.
Well, he says he didn't handle anything. It was,
let the regulators,
SAS and Barclays Bank handled it.
Let the regulators look at it.
But you know these things.
I say let the regulators handle it.
Okay, so let's get to Parliament now. Let's get to issues concerning Ghana's Parliament. Now, there's been some issues, some allegations in Parliament. Of course, in the past, there's been, some members who have alleged that Ghana's Parliament, some members of Parliament, were engaged in attempted bribery. Of course, the committee has cleared them. But for many Ghanaians, they see Ghana's Parliament as one that is shredded in some bit of corruption. They make reference to the fact that, former majority leader, former minority leader, Aban Bagbin had made a case, for instance, that there's some members of Parliament who had received things on behalf of people just to make cases for them. How's this affected Parliament, and what's your reaction to that?
My firm belief have always been that stronger parliaments make better democracies, and we need to resituate the Parliament of Ghana, a very important organ. Indeed, it remains the citadel of democracy. It has and exercises representational, legislative oversight functions. And it's important that Parliament takes its pride of place in contributing to our national development, the shaping of policy, ensuring fiscal discipline. Parliament has a role. Therefore, perceptive image of Parliament as a corrupt institution undermines and erodes public confidence in that institution. And that probably, without doubt, is an image problem that Parliament needs to deal with. It's an inescapable fact that Parliament everywhere in the world is a heart of accountability. That's why Parliament is normally situated at the apex of all accountability institutions. And therefore, a primary role of Parliament is oversight. Regrettably, in Ghana since 1993 up to yesterday, the parliamentary oversight function is seen more as an opposition function than a function for Parliament and a function for all parliamentarians. Probably because other members of Parliament will not engage in it to save or protect their government from being embarrassed. That itself weakens the strength of Parliament, particularly in the exercise of oversight. We need Parliament to be more responsive to the needs of the people. And I think that we in the minority will work with the Speaker and the other side in order to make Parliament more responsive, more transparent, and more accountable to the people. I'm not able to respond to specific issues.
Okay, but talking about, the visa, fraud that was leveled against some members of Parliament, there's one member who's in the minority. Is there any action you're taking against that person?
Indeed, as I'm speaking to you, we have an engagement further with the British High Commission. So I would rather want to finish with that consultation to have a deeper understanding of what the problem is. If there is, in fact, members of parliament who are dual citizens or non-citizens of Ghana, that breaches Article 94 of the Constitution on who qualifies to be MP and ministers of state. There are matters we should look into and take appropriate decision. And those that are not deserving to be MPs and others, the law probably will be able to deal with it in a manner that the judiciary are competent to be able to handle.
And those that are engaged in visa fraud also?
That's why I say that I'm now getting further particulars in order that I would understand who's done what and what is wrong about what has been done. So we have an engagement further with the British High Commission in particular, and I'm sure we'll engage other Western diplomats. But whatever it is, we would look at it and see.
What do you make of, the previous administration, of which you were passed decision to purchase, vehicles for the current administration 3 months before leaving office, the 9.3 million, if I could put that way, luxury vehicles for the current administration?
This is better answered by the Chief of Staff Office, and then the Chief of Staff Office at the time. I'm not clothed with the full details as to what may have motivated the decision.
But do you think there should be a cap on the things that an outgoing government can do to prevent some of these things from happening?
I think that, for me, it raises even more a fundamental question. Acts done on or before 7th January dawn are lawful. The previous government had a mandate. The mandate lapsed only midnight of 6th January. I do not think it's appropriate for the new government to be questioning every act or decision of the previous government. Save where there is fraud and save where it borders on crime or criminality. You cannot set aside decisions because today you have a mandate. We had a mandate yesterday. And if the mandate was exercised in a manner lawful, they have no business setting it aside or questioning it. It's just a waste of time of public ears. I mean, that, for instance, they tell you that they are going to review and set aside contract. Which contract? You are also going to sign contracts. You are signing it pursuant to your mandate that you have the power to govern for 4 years. There was an administration the people of Ghana voted for another 4 years. They went into some transactions. If you are probing for purpose of fact-finding of a wrongdoing, probably you can proceed on that. But to find everything wrong with the actions of the previous government is to beg the issue. I think that they must watch it. We are in this country. Remember that we also inherited a government from them ending in 2008. In 2009, we do have some of their records. But I think they must respect the sanctity of contracts and avoid another reintroduction of judgment debt. No. In terms of values, we all must now work, and that comes to your earlier question. Parliament and scrutiny and value for money. I think that we should strengthen Parliament to do a better diligent scrutiny of the bills and the financial bills in particular that comes before us, and that which guarantees value for money. So if you come to a transition, and let me just deal with it.
Sure.
We have a Transition Act. Today, we are having lots of quiet fear and panic within the civil and local government service. Everybody now is being told that these are NDC men and women. These were those of us who were loyal to you as MPP. Let the NDC go home. It presupposes that they coexisted. There were NDC and MPP workers. Why come today and dismiss one section of it? You want to recycle of it? That is not good for the future of our country. And I think that it must stop the wanton dismissal and proceed on leave. For instance, you have some agency which has what you call a scheme of service. Then you have a degree holder being asked to go and report to an HND holder in the name of political change of power.
Okay, but
that
for those,
right.
for those, finally on this, but for those who are against, an outgoing government performing these functions, they've raised the argument that not everything legal is desirable. There are times at a certain point, you're leaving office. there's a new government coming in.
Yes.
Why don't you allow the incoming government to come in and take certain decisions that would bind it? For instance, in the US, Obama could have wanted to appoint a chief judge, a Supreme Court judge. He was told to hold on. That was even 6 months before he left office, because wait till the next president comes in and then he does that. Shouldn't we be looking at considering these things? You're leaving office a day to your departure. You say, I have signed this thing, and that is binding on the next government. Why don't you wait for the next government to come in and then take those decisions?
You've expressed your opinion. That may be a good opinion if the person exercising that public trust could restrain himself. I'm saying that do not necessarily throw it out because the government was getting out of office. So tomorrow, every regime will change. It's only change that's not permanent. I don't think that we should introduce a culture that everything is set aside because it was done by a previous government.
Okay.
There are many other contracts that they are continuing with. For instance, persons employed in 2016 have been asked to go home in many institutions, whether it's National Health Insurance, Youth Employment Agency, National Petroleum Authority, to name a few. All of them. I mean, persons who have worked with this agency for 2-3 years, just because of a change in government, they must go home,
Okay.
and you are justifying that in the name of a new administration.
I have only told
God
you.
save
I've
this
only told you
country.
what the
God
other
save
side
this country.
says. I've only
That
told you
is not
the
right.
argument of the other side. But let's get to
That
the
is not-
let's get to the
that is
NDC.
not
Let's get to the
right.
NDC finally. Now, I know that the Constitutional Committee is yet to come out with its finding, but even before it does so, your founder is outlining some of the things that caused your defeat. Now he says that corruption, greed caused your defeat. You agree?
That's not new. Didn't you hear him during the campaign?
Yes, and I'm asking whether you
So
agree.
It's not new. Every government works with human beings who are not angels, and there are persons who may not hold the values and tenets of the party, but probably it's better if he zeroed in to let us know.
So do you agree
which
corruption
particular
caused the NDC's defeat?
That's a wholesale statement.
That's the founder talking.
The defeat
Do you
could
agree
not,
with him?
The defeat could not be as a result of just one factor. Every other government have been accused of corruption from independence up to yesterday. Check. I mean, you've had even military intervention. The justification was accuses if you recall, and every government.
But was that a
accuses
major
the
cause
other.
of your party's defeat?
I would not speculate. I'd rather wait for the Kwesi Committee's report. I'd rather wait for the report and its findings. I've always shared this joke that, I mean, if you go to a mortuary and take a dead body and say, you want to find out what is wrong. If something was not wrong, you find the body in a morgue. So something went wrong.
Okay, well, but still on the NDC. There are those who are calling for a change in the party's leadership.
Probably, I just think that there was a disconnect between the party and its grassroots base. And conventionally, persons who otherwise have never voted for the MPP voted for them because they were unhappy or dissatisfied with some policy interventions of government or some actions of the functionaries of government. And recall that for me, unemployment was major in this election. I rather will attribute it to a growing youthful population that felt unhappy about the strategies to deal with their concerns, which was to give them employment. And I've always maintained that employment remains the best measure of standard of living.
Okay, so would you call for a change in the leadership of the NDC?
Leave that to the party to decide. The party, after the Kwesi Committee, will go through a natural process of reorganization. The party will go through a democratic process to determine its leaders from Brian to constituency to regional to national. And that is vested in the sovereign will of those who share the values and philosophy of the NDC. It's not for anybody at the top to determine.
You're a leading member of the party.
It is not for me to determine who becomes national chairman or general secretary. No. Everybody should keep to his constituency. For instance, when I hear the NDC discuss reorganization, Tamale South, safe and secured. We don't need a reorganization in Tamale South. Every branch is functional. every branch is active. Let every strong member in the NDC go and pick one constituency and branch to develop it, support it, to contribute to the fortunes of the party. I think we should focus on the future and put the defeat behind us. There's no gain in continuing to lament about the past. There's very little we can do to change the circumstance. We are in opposition, a party in opposition, and we necessarily must be preparing to govern and to be in government. And that is where our resources, both in terms of minds, financial resources, muscle strength, and ideas, should focus on the future of the party and repositioning it to rule Ghana. I think that the people of Ghana fairly would relatively compare our performance to the current government, and the prospects are good. The prospects are bright. Even today, if elections were conducted, I'm sure as many as 30 seats we can get back just today, not 2020.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, yes.
Based on your analysis?
Yes, there were many seats we just gave away. I mean, just take Savulugu. It's never been an MPP seat. There was a difference between a candidate and an independent candidate. We had the same thing in Saboba, narrow win in Panda, and many. I'm just using my region to give you an analysis. So I think that, for instance, in the central region, you lost as many as more than 15 seats. Same in western region. It means that the electorate spoke eloquently that we need to change our way of doing things as a government. And if we do get an opportunity tomorrow, we'll respond to those aspirations and needs of the Ghanaian people. So for me, I've never been a slave of history. I'm only a guide of it. So let the past not be what will hold me and not focusing on the future.
So let's get to you now. Now, the President of the Republic, in presenting the State of the Nation address, said you have an important role to play in Ghana's politics. There are many who've suggested that that important role should come in you being president. You have presidential ambitions, Honorable Iddrisu?
I've said that my father didn't know Accra. I've come very far and leave that to fate and to destiny. And I've had opportunity to meet the president at a funeral in Kumasi. I believe it was Isaac Osai's mother's funeral. And I said that, Mr. President, you've increased my political share value. Thanks for that brutally frank and courageous statement. We'll work at it and let's leave that to the grace of God. And my role now is to be minority leader, to galvanize the party in Parliament, to provide a credible, constructive opposition that repositions the party as a credible alternative to government. And I'm sure we are on course and we will do our utmost best not to disappoint the Ghanaian people in holding this government accountable. So as to the future,
we'll leave that to the grace of God.
It will be the future.
We'll leave that to the grace of God.
It is a future.
You do your part, you leave the rest to the grace of God.
To the future.
Thank you very much, Honorable Haruna Iddrisu, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, so folks, that's all from us this afternoon. Hot Issues. Our guest has been Minority Leader of Parliament and Member of Parliament for Tamale South, Honorable Haruna Iddrisu. On behalf of the team, my name is Winston. Well, do have a lovely weekend, and I see you on Monday on Sunrise on 3FM 92.7 from 5:55 a.m. to 10 a.m.